back to lesson 3, the path from tracking to forecasting. We just wrapped up talking about the go-to-market maturity framework and the ultimate goal of getting to level 5, that beautiful state of total financial transparency and control. But here's the truth. You can't just jump to level 5. You have to earn it. And you earn it by successfully building the foundation of predictability and forecasting that is levels 1, 2, and 3. In this lesson, we're drilling down into the practical, non-negotiable steps that you'll take to actually operationalize the first 3 levels and truly unlock the first major phases of scalable growth. The entire process boils down to 2 things: data quality and metric alignment. If you nail those, you win. Let's dive in to levels 1 and 2, the data audit. This is where you can stop guessing and start knowing. This is where you can move your business from that chaotic reactive level 0, that immature state, and confidently move into level 1, your foundational data, and level 2, your acquisition KPIs. But in order to do that, you have to conduct a rigid forensic audit of your current systems. And I am talking get in there, ask the hard questions. This is where the rubber meets the road. As a person who cares about their company and wants to drive growth, especially as a revenue operations leader, you are going to have to ask non-negotiable questions and get a resounding yes. Going to have to be brutally honest, because you need a yes from all of these in order to move your business forth into the next stage of growth. So let's start talking about it. What's the first question? Are you tracking volume metrics? Have they been clearly defined? And are you tracking them in a single source of truth? I'm talking about the key inputs from the revenue performance model that we talked about in class 1. Sessions, leads, MQLs. Maybe you don't have MQLs, you have qualified leads. Whatever it is, your volume metrics need to be clearly defined, and you need to answer yes to whether or not you're tracking them. If you can't measure the volume of traffic coming into your funnel, your acquisition side of the revenue performance model, then you can't measure the output. And if you can't measure the output, you have no basis for comparison. Without basic volume counts, you're just running blind, right? Same question for your conversion rates. If you've got the volume metrics, do you have the conversion rates in between? Are those clearly defined? If you can't see with clarity the conversion between your, let's say, leads and MQLs, you can't diagnose the friction that could live there. You can't confidently tell your CEO. The problem is that between leads and MQLs, we're having a fallout. You can't pinpoint in the process that that's where you're slipping, that that's where leads are falling through the funnel. And that moves us on to question 3. Does everyone use the same definition for each metric? Again, I've said this over and over, but that's because this is statistically the most common failure point in achieving level 1. It's that everyone is defining something just a little bit differently. If marketing is defining a lead differently than sales is defining a lead, then your data is not just incomplete, it's useless. And actually, it's malicious. It actively breeds distrust between departments. For example, if you asked marketing how many MQLs they got for a certain quarter, and they said a high number, I'll just pull a number out of thin air. Let's say, there were 600 marketing qualified leads according to marketing. But then sales comes back and says, actually, no, there were only 200 marketing qualified leads. Obviously, the reason is because they're defining it differently. But what happens there is that now you're causing combative attitudes and distrust between your departments. Sales thinks that marketing is fluffing their stats. Marketing thinks that sales is out to get them. This is why it's so important to have consistent, clear definitions, and why I will keep asking you if you have them. Then question 4, can I trust the data at every stage? I'm going to say it again. Trust is so important for building your foundation. It's actually the currency of level 1 maturity. If your source of truth is riddled with manual entries and duplicate records and fields that are inconsistently filled out, if your teams are not defining things the correct way or even consistent the same way, then trust is broken and you're immediately back into that chaotic, immature state. It requires automation and enforcement to ensure that data entry is consistent and accurate. And that works alongside the clear definitions and making sure that everyone is speaking the same language. Once you have a definition clearly defined and universally adopted by all departments, then you need the consistency and accuracy of enforcement. Question 5, where can I quickly, easily find this data? The answer has to be your single source of truth. Whatever your single source of truth is, that has to be the place that everyone knows to go to find the information they're looking for. If I ask you this question, where can I see your revenue data for quarter 4? If you answer anything like, well, I think Frank has a spreadsheet, or, Jeff has a basket on his desk, or, oh, I actually pull a lot of different information and then I put it into a spreadsheet and just sort of do my own formulas. All of those were wrong answers, just so you know. None of those should be the answer that you give if you actually want to achieve a unified view of your data. If you answered anything like that, then you're unequivocally at level 0 and in that messy, chaotic state of immaturity. You have to be able to pull all of your data from a unified source, and not just you. Anyone needs to be able to pull data consistently. Think about it this way. If your A players left tomorrow, one of them, multiple, either way, if they left, would you still know how the system works? Would you be able to train the next people? More importantly, would whomever fills that gap be able to give you the information that you need? Or would you be lost in the sauce? This is the importance of clarity. This is why the definitions are not optional. It's so critical. I say this all the time, clarity is kindness. It's actually one of the Rev Partners operating principles. Clarity is kindness. If everyone isn't speaking the same operational language, then you'll never be able to consistently and accurately measure what you need to. You'll just be wasting time arguing over definitions or hunting through that desk mess to try to find the spreadsheet that you're looking for. The overall goal in establishing your maturity is to shift your thinking. You have to go from thinking, well, we might hit our goal, or, Jeff over there knows whether we're going to hit our goal. You have to shift that thinking to everyone in your company, everyone in your revenue generating departments thinking, I know exactly whether or not we are going to hit the goal, and I know why. That's what we're driving toward. Defining the KPIs. This is a huge piece of level 1 and 2 maturity. This is how you get to level 3 and being able to action insights. You have to know what you're measuring in order to break into it and get valuable information out of it. So again, I've given several examples already. I'm going to keep giving you examples until it really hits home. Let's go back to the example that we had earlier of marketing saying, hey, we had 600 qualified leads, and sales saying, oh, actually, no, we only had 200. Here's why that could occur. If marketing is defining those qualified leads as all contacts that have filled out a form or attended a webinar, sales is saying, no, qualified leads are contacts that have scheduled a demo and provided budget information. That is a massive gap in between the customer journey. Those are two wildly different definitions. And now you see why one of those would be at 600 and one would only be at 200. If teams operate with two different definitions, what's going to happen is that marketing is celebrating their high volume and sales is complaining about the low quality. You have a contest, you have a combative attitude, and constant finger pointing is what's going to happen. And that's not just a team problem. That is an entire company problem. That's a RevOps problem, because you need one unified documented definition locked in to your data model. What I have here is based on the template that we had before. So I have sessions and leads, MQLs, SQLs, opportunities. The important part is for your KPI discovery and documentation process to take place between all revenue generating departments and force alignment. Shift data from just assumptions or a dictatorship to actually having a clear, concise, Bill of Rights or framework, a structured document that you can go back to that's accurate and trusted every single time. Something that is so built into the lifeblood that it makes it impossible for anyone to not understand what a lead is or what an MQL is. What does that KPI discovery and documentation look like? I actually have a tactical blueprint for you here. This is what we use as RevOps strategists here at Rev Partners. We do a non-negotiable KPI discovery with all the revenue generating teams to create that foundational alignment of primary KPIs and actually help start the organization process to create actionable insights. This is how I start going through that. The goal here is to answer the what. Once you hit level 2 maturity, your focus should be entirely on, are we going to hit our number? What is it that we have to have what we're measuring to know what it is that we're going to hit? What I would do with my partners is walk them through an example of a worksheet just like this, with me filling out the triggers and the initial definitions based on best practices. Then have them take this away, all their revenue generating departments, and fill it in together. When everyone has a voice, it's way easier to drive adoption and alignment. But the important thing is to have this discovery together. Do not leave the table until you've defined every one of these volume metrics. If you have any uncertainty as to what V6 actually is, what makes a deal closed won? Is it when the contract is signed, or is it when we actually get the first paycheck, or is it just because the rep moved it to the closed won stage? Whatever it is, make sure that it's very clearly defined. If there's any confusion, then you've not completed this crucial part of the activity. And again, in the future, trust will be non-existent. You're going to just have those combative departments. You're going to have confusion. You're starting back at the beginning if you don't complete this. Primary KPI alignment, it is critical for a clean, clear data model, and that's going to organize your foundational data into actionable insights. You've heard me say it over and over, so I'm going to say it again. Primary KPI alignment is the critical piece for clean data that will give you actionable insights. Making sure that everyone is on the same page and everyone is speaking the same language is the key to unlocking data that you can trust and data that you can use for predictive insights. Let's take an example. This is the primary KPI data table that you are working toward in level 2. This is where you're trying to push those volume and conversion metrics into a consistent data table that will show you the path to growth. I just said a lot of words. Here's what I mean by that. This right here is the outcome. This is the end goal for your level 2 KPI discovery and documentation task. This is where you're working toward. The goal is to be able to see each of those metrics over time periods. So it could be month over month. The example here is quarter over quarter. But the goal is to be able to see trends in your volume and conversion metrics, because that's what's going to give you the areas that you can pinpoint in level 3 with deeper insights. Think of it like level 2 gives you the symptoms that the doctor would need to diagnose the illness. Your volume and conversion metrics drive those symptoms. They let you know where to look for more information, and then you can actually make the diagnosis and then determine a treatment plan. Let me walk you through a quick example to hopefully bring it all together. So let's look at this data table and actually look at one of the conversion rates. Let's do CR5, the conversion rate from opportunity to closed won deal. This is your close rate. So In this, what we're seeing, your conversion rates are hovering between, 22 and 30%. That tells us the what. The what is that our sales team converts roughly 1 out of every 4 qualified opportunities into a closed won deal. That's actually pretty massive. That's great information for you to know, and it gives you some predictive insights. If leadership wants to close, X amount of dollars next quarter, RevOps can confidently forecast, okay, well, great. Based on our 25% average conversion rate, then sales needs this amount of opportunities in the pipeline in order to get that X number. This is you moving from guessing to making data-backed requests, actually driving actionable, insight-driven results. But let's take this a step further. Look closer and notice how the average deal size actually dropped in quarter 4, leading to you needing a higher volume of deals in order to hit that closed revenue target. So let's take the same directive from the CEO. If you wanted that X number based on your 25% conversion rate, then yes. So let's say, for example, if we wanted to close $100,000 based on our 25% conversion rate, then that says we need $400,000 worth of deals in the pipeline. But if you are noticing a trend of your average deal size going down, then that means you actually need more than that $400,000. You need, let's just say, $600,000 in order to still reach that total deal value of $100,000 for that quarter. This data is all extremely helpful, and it is telling us, it's already giving us some actionable insights that we can move from. It's telling us what, and it's telling us where to go, but it's not telling us exactly why. Why did the average deal amount drop during that quarter? Was the drop due to a specific product being heavily discounted? Is there seasonality that we aren't taking into account? Did we onboard a new rep who focused on smaller customers or had a longer onboarding time than we expected? Is it a geographical trend? We won't know the why without level 3. That's where we unlock the secondary KPIs, those strategic secondary partitions to actually answer, okay, why did this happen? Because if I know the why, I will be able to forecast even more strongly. Your primary KPIs are only actually telling you part of the story. The secondary KPIs, those secondary partitions, the drill downs, that's what's key to actually unlocking your full revenue potential. Let's dig in and actually talk about those secondary KPIs, those secondary partitioning metrics. What are they? So here's an example. If your primary KPI is the what, for example, your MQL to SQL conversion rate, your secondary partition is the why. That's the MQL to SQL conversion rate partitioned by industry, lead source, sales rep, product category. It's the who, what, when, and where dimensions that allow you to actually drill into the root cause of poor or excellent performance. This is the difference between general observation and surgical precision. It's the difference between saying, I have kind of a stomach ache, and actually knowing, oh no, I am having abdominal cramps and it is caused by food that I ate, and here is how I can fix that, right? It's having an actual diagnosis. Okay, let's take a look at level 3 partitions and how they would allow you to gain actionable, immediate insights by taking a couple of the common secondary partitions that I see most often. I've got 3 examples on this slide, but let's actually look in detail at product category and sales rep breakouts. Let's say you were looking at your overall opportunity to deals won conversion rate, and it's holding steady at 25%. That alone doesn't tell you much, but when you partition it out by product category, you suddenly see something like, hey, Old Faithful product 1 is converting at a phenomenal rate. But let's say that, shiny new thing isn't converting nearly like I thought. Let's take a tangible example with some hard numbers, because this is my world and I can do whatever I want with it. Let's just say that the percentage that actually became opportunities of Old Faithful product number 1, it's a phenomenal rate. It's absolutely absurd. So let's say that 60% of the time when people come in for a deal on old faithful product number one, they are going to follow through 60% of the time and make a purchase. But then you take a look at your other products and you start to notice, hey, shiny new thing that we were so excited about, it actually, in comparison, only has a 10% conversion rate. Only 10% of people who came in wanting to purchase shiny new thing actually became an opportunity. You've now gone from, oh, okay, we have steady conversion rate of 25%. And now you're thinking, wow, wait, why did our ideal client profile not like shiny new thing? What happened to shiny new thing? This is where you would direct marketing and sales training and product development immediately to the low converting product. That's the difference between simply informative and actionable. Let's look at a second example, partitioning by sales representative. I want to call this one out specifically because I'm sure after product category, you already get the picture, but this one is really important and it's one of the most common breakouts that we see. But here's an important call out. Using sales reps as a secondary partition is not about a performance review. It's about process optimization and enablement. We can't have egos about it. It's meant to help, to optimize, not tear down. So always remember to approach it, look from a place of kindness, from a place of wanting to help optimize. Let's take an example. If we had, our cast of John, Paul, George, and Ringo, and they all have quite similar final close rates. But let's say one, let's just pick on Ringo, has a significantly lower MQL to SQL conversion rate. That would suggest to us that the MQL handoff or qualification process is broken for Ringo. That doesn't necessarily mean that Ringo themselves is doing anything wrong. It just tells you need to look closer at that area. So that's what I mean about this not being a performance review. It's diagnostic. It tells you where to look. It could be that maybe Ringo's territory is going through something difficult, a natural disaster. It could be that there's something in the process that's being lost before Ringo even gets to it, or the qualification isn't solid, again, from that territory, from that maybe type of business. So building up to level 3, this is the power that you unlock once you've reached this first phase of your maturity. It's the level of maturity that allows you to move from general observations to precise predictive action. You get to transition from a descriptive system to a truly predictive one, from having knowledge for knowledge's sake to actionable strategy. Before we move on to the next lesson and actually look at the strategic end game of maturity, those levels 4 and 5, let's do one final recap. At this point, you should have level 1's discipline. You should have clean, integrated processes and documentation built into your single source of truth. You should have level 2's clarity. You should be measuring the primary KPIs and you should be able to answer with precision, will we hit X metric? You should have level 3's predictability. You can not only measure the primary KPI and know what we're going to hit, you should be able to accurately answer the critical question, why or why not are we hitting X metric? And what exactly must change? Once you've developed this robust, reliable data foundation, you can pivot into the exponential growth drivers. Levels 4 and 5, integrating financial operations and actually focusing on operationalizing growth. Remember my warning though, it's important to stay at this level, at level 3, for as long as you need to truly refine and optimize those processes, because trust me, want everything built in a sturdy, reliable foundation before you start pushing forward and bringing in revenue metrics.